Okay, I'll stick to this. Okay, so over the last several days, weeks, there have actually been many questions that keep coming up about what is happening with retail, what is happening in e-commerce, what is happening in digital. Who is the digital consumer, what are they buying, why are they buying? And of course, the very big question of how will it all make money? I will not profess to answer all the questions. I'll certainly leave it for the panel. There are great personalities. Sachin is there, Mr. Junjunwala is there. I've heard him talk about this topic before, to have a discussion on some of the aspects of it. But what I do believe is that there is a lot of noise and very little data around this entire space. So what we've tried to do at BCG is, one of the credos that we go by is that, in God we believe, everyone else must bring data. And what we've done over the last, several months is actually try to create the data. And this is actually not how we've created the data. We've not just taken the average of everything and multiplied it with something. Over the last several weeks, we've actually spoken to thousands of customers, end consumers, who are actually buying, transacting, people who go to stores, people who buy online, and try to understand what is really going on. What I'll do over the next 7-8 minutes or so is share some of the key highlights that we found, and at the end of it, we'll have an opportunity to release a report, and you'll get a chance to see a lot of the data on your own. The first point I'd like to make is that people keep saying yes, no, maybe. To me, there is no maybe or there is no. It's a yes. It's a digital tsunami that's coming our way. And why we call it a tsunami is just because of sheer numbers and the kind of unprecedented movement that is happening in how people actually consume information and how people consume. In 2015, which is right now, there are about 260 million people in India with some sort of internet usage. It could be as simple as email, it could be WhatsApp, but they're using data in some form or the other. By 2020, we estimate this number to be 650 million. 650 million is about almost half the population of the country at that time, and will be twice the population of the entire country of United States. So the numbers are very compelling in how much will the influence of digital be on the lives of the consumer and in the industry that we are all here to discuss. Without a doubt, e-commerce is actually going to be big. Depending on who you ask, there are different estimates. A lot of it is driven also by, which side of the camp you're in. A lot of it is also driven by what you believe will be supplier actions, because it is being shaped more by supplier actions than by consumer demand, just the rate of growth. Our estimate right now, and we reserve the right to modify it every year as we see the market evolve, is today, e-commerce is about $8 to $10 billion in sales, and this is not services, this is only goods. We expect this number to be close to $50 billion by 2020. Now, this is a number that catches everyone's fancy. I think what is not discussed as often is the role of digital influence. Now, what we define digital influence as is people who make purchases wherever they may make it, but are influenced digitally about what they're purchasing and where they're purchasing from. They may do research online, they may actually visit shops online, they may come to stores, they may experience the product, they may try it out, whichever way. But we estimate that about 350 to 400 million consumers in India will be influenced in their purchases digitally. And more than a retail industry, we expect to be about $1 trillion by 2020, based on the GDP growth. We expect about a quarter of that to be influenced digitally. And this is important because in this noise and in all this talk that we have about e-commerce, I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that even... Okay, so I just realized that I was showing you data without your actually being able to see it. So here's the data that I was talking about, and you'll get the chance to read it in the report also. We expect, as I was saying, about a quarter of the total retail business that happens in the country to be digitally influenced, which is a very big number and something that not just retailers, but also manufacturers, also suppliers actually need to keep in mind. This is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. What we've done is try to estimate where in the trajectory will different categories be, where something like travel, which is already fairly sophisticated in terms of how digital consumption is happening, will be pretty much dominated by digital by 2020, whereas a set of categories, particularly things like staples, things like branded packaged goods, we expect to be in a much earlier part of the trajectory at that point of time. The having talked about big numbers, having talked about $1 trillion of retail and quarter of that being digitally influenced, I think it's also important to talk about the digital consumer. It is morphing, it is evolving. The typical mindset we have is that a digital consumer is someone who's young, urban, very often male. And we're actually, as we have done the survey, we've realized that a lot of those facts are changing and will continue to change fairly quickly. Today, we believe that about 1/5 of the users already online are above 35 years of age. We expect that number to be 1/3. So the stereotype that e-commerce or digital or doing something online is for the young college-going kids, and that's where the energy should be focused, is actually, we believe, something that people need to move away from. Because these 1/3 of consumers who are above 35 years of age also are greater than 50% of the spending power in the country. And hence, if people want to appeal or create a big business online, whether through influence or through commerce, it's important that they actually keep in mind this particular fact. The other big change, and this is a massive change that is happening, is how much online presence is penetrating rural. And with improved broadband connectivities, with better mobile coverages, this is only increasing. Already, we believe that 1/3 of all online consumers in India, and this is not necessarily people who are buying, but this is people who are online, are already in rural India, and this is rural as defined by the Census of India. We believe that number will be half, which means that if you think that you can create a big online business by only focusing on the large cities, actually, it won't happen. A big part of the business and a big part of the opportunities is going to come from more remote parts of the country, and the challenge there will be how do you reach them. The same challenges that we faced in the physical retailing world will also transcend to the online retailing world. And finally, women. It's already close to 30% of urban users in India are women, and that number is going to cross 40%. So big numbers, a lot going to happen, but really important to de-average and understand what part of the consumers are evolving, what part of the consumers are going to be online, and are we really ready to take on the opportunity. Now, this is a question that generates a lot of debate. It's a question that always gets very different kinds of data, is why are people buying online? Who are the people? We talked a little bit about who, but why are people buying online? And the survey that we've done suggests that no surprises there. 41% of people who responded said that they were actually buying online because of the discounts that they were getting. And a lot of it is, of course, is supply driven. Interestingly and importantly, there are actually many other reasons. If you look at the box in the middle, a lot of people are buying online because the products are unavailable in the city, because it allows for customization, because there are more options. A lot of people are buying because of convenience. So while discounts and pricing is important and critical in how the industry is evolving right now, that's not the way, that's not the only reason. And anyone who's trying to create an online business needs to be aware that there are all these other parameters that they need to make sure that they are on top of. Another question that actually gets discussed a lot in forums like RAI and similar forums is what is the role going forward, and what is the role today of physical stores? Our survey suggests that there are many reasons why people like to go to physical stores and will continue to do that. One of is habit, and habits are difficult to change, it takes time. Then there is physicality. People like to and need to touch and feel. There is validation, the need to check the features. There is risk and availability. There are several reasons. And hence our view is that in no point in the near future are we seeing the physical retailers or the physical retail becoming less relevant. It is a question of how do we capture the opportunity. The last thought I'd leave for everyone in the room is depending on who you are, there are a set of priorities that we believe are important. For brick and mortar retailers or traditional brick and mortar retailers, I think there are 5 things. First is, it's not just about selling online, it's about influencing online. And do you have the right capabilities and the right processes in place to do that? Second is, do you have a clear roadmap of how you're going to capture this online opportunity that we'll be discussing for the next day and a half? Third is investing in non-price drivers. Price is the easiest way to win consumers, but it is the least sticky way to keep customers. So what are we going to do to make sure that we actually retain those customers? And finally, it's about reimagining the role of physical stores and digitizing our businesses in the back end. Similar questions exist for the e-commerce players as well. How do you ensure customer stickiness that go beyond price? Because price is increasingly becoming commodity. How do you build the next generation of customer lifecycle management, and how do you actually engage with the customers? How do you leverage the data? E-commerce companies have massive amounts of data. What's the best way to analyze it? What's the best way to make the most of it? And the most interesting part, where there are potential partnerships, alliances, and innovations that are possible in the Indian ecosystem, is the combination of offline and online. What should be done offline, what should be done online to create the best, give the best experience to the consumer? And obviously, to make it all happen, having the supply chain capabilities. Those were some brief thoughts I wanted to share. There are, fairly tricky questions. There are, particularly around how the interface will happen and how the industry will evolve. And we've got a great panel which will actually discuss a lot of that in the next couple of minutes. So look forward to that discussion and look forward to a great day and a half. Thank you very much.
Report on stage. We have our luminaries on stage, and we'd like to take advantage of their presence. We really are taking advantage of your presence, sir. Our apologies. To release this report. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations on the release of this report. You could